A simple traffic stop turned into something completely unexpected. This officer had no idea who he was dealing with. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the calm streets of a suburban neighborhood in Fairview Heights, Missouri. Angela Carter, a confident and well-dressed woman in her early 40s, was driving home after a business meeting. Her sleek, black Tesla moved smoothly along the road. It was one of those peaceful moments where she felt thankful for everything she had achieved. But the quiet drive didn't last long. Suddenly, flashing red and blue lights lit up her rearview mirror. The sharp sound of a siren broke her train of thought. Angela's heart jumped, not because she was scared, but because she was annoyed. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong. She glanced at her speedometer. She was well under the limit. Still, she used her signal, pulled over calmly and took a deep breath. The police car stopped behind her. Officer Dan Baker stepped out, the gravel crunching under his boots as he walked toward her car. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and walked with authority. His expression was stern, lips pressed in a tight line. Angela rolled down her window, keeping her face calm but alert. Before she could speak, the officer leaned in, staring into her car with such intensity that she instinctively gripped the steering wheel tighter. "License and registration," he said sharply, without a hint of politeness. Angela moved slowly, handing him the documents. "May I ask why I've been pulled over, officer?" she asked in a calm, professional tone. He narrowed his eyes. "I'll be asking the questions. Step out of the vehicle." He gave no explanation, no reason. Angela didn't move, not because she was being difficult, but because she knew her rights. He hadn't told her why. Her short pause seemed to bother him. "I said, step out of the vehicle," he barked, his voice rising loud enough for nearby pedestrians to turn and look. Angela locked eyes with him. She wasn't about to back down, but she also knew this was just the start of something bigger. The silence between them was thick. It was clear this wasn't over. Angela's calm attitude only seemed to make Officer Baker more tense. His hand rested on his gun, not pulling it, but enough to send a warning. Angela noticed the move, but didn't flinch. She stayed steady. "Officer, I'm happy to cooperate," she said firmly. "If you can tell me the legal reason I need to step out of the car." Her voice didn't shake. His jaw clenched as he leaned in closer to the window. "You're acting suspicious. This is my stop, and I don't owe you any explanation," the officer snapped. His dismissive tone was nearly as loud as the authority he was trying to assert. Angela let out a slow breath, doing her best not to make the situation worse. Instead of arguing, she calmly unlocked her door and stepped out. She stood tall, not letting the officer's aggressive stance. Dressed in a navy blazer over a crisp white blouse, she looked put together and professional. If Officer Baker noticed her appearance, he didn't seem to care. "Hands where I can see them," he ordered, stepping back slightly, as if expecting her to do something wrong. Angela did as he asked, raising her hands a little. The move felt pointless and a bit degrading. A small group of people had started to gather nearby. Their whispers were growing louder. "You're driving a fancy car in a place we don't get many outsiders," Baker said, his words loaded with unspoken judgment. Angela clenched her jaw but kept her face composed. "Are you saying I don't belong here?" Baker gave a smug smile. His tone was thick with arrogance. "I'm saying it's my job to make sure everything checks out. Where are you headed, ma'am?" "Home," she answered simply. "I live here." The officer raised an eyebrow, clearly doubtful. "Is that so? Want to prove it?" Angela was about to reply when a voice called out from the crowd, "Leave her alone. She didn't do anything." Baker whipped his head around, glaring at the people watching. "Mind your own business," he snapped, his irritation bubbling to the surface. Angela saw her chance. "Officer," she said firmly, "I've been nothing but cooperative, but your behavior is uncalled for and unprofessional. If there's nothing else, I'd like to leave." His face turned red, caught between embarrassment and anger. He stepped closer, lowering his voice into a threatening growl. "You don't tell me how to do my job." But Angela didn't flinch. The tension around them was thick enough to cut. Everyone could feel it. This was headed towards something serious. Angela met Baker's glare without backing down. She'd seen this type of man before, men who thought their position gave them the right to control and bully. But she also understood the strength of staying calm. Every move, every pause, every word mattered, and right now she was letting Baker bury himself with his own actions. "Officer," she began, her voice steady but sharp, "I know my rights. Unless you have clear evidence that I've broken the law, you have no reason to keep me here." Her tone was firm, her words exact. The crowd murmured in support, energized by her confidence. But Baker, he looked like he was about to explode. He stood up straighter, trying to take back control. "I don't need a lesson on the law from you," he snapped. "You think you can talk your way out of this, just because you're—" He cut himself off, but the meaning behind his words hung thick in the air. Angela slightly tilted her head, her face calm and unreadable. "Because I'm what, officer?" she asked. "Educated, successful, black." That last word hit hard like a thunderclap. A hush fell over the small group of people watching. Baker's face darkened. He opened his mouth, ready to respond, but Angela didn't give him the chance. "You should know," she said, her voice steady. "I have no problem taking this higher if needed." She gave a subtle nod toward the small dash cam mounted on her windshield. Baker's eyes shifted to the camera. For the first time, his confident front started to slip. "You can't scare me," he muttered, but the fire in his voice was gone. "I'm not trying to scare you," Angela replied calmly. "I'm trying to make sure you're held accountable." For a second, it looked like Baker might step back. His eyes flicked between Angela, the camera, and the crowd watching him closely. But his pride wouldn't let him stop. He stepped in closer, breaking into her personal space. "You're playing a risky game," he warned, his voice low so only she could hear. Angela didn't move, didn't blink. "And so are you," she replied. The weight of her words hung in the space between them. Baker's hand twitched at his side. His confidence was starting to crumble, but Angela could tell it wasn't over yet. She saw it in his restless, stormy eyes. The tension was thick in the air. Baker stared at her, torn between holding on to his authority and the growing truth that it was slipping away. Angela stood firm, her eyes locked on his. The crowd was silent, but the energy around them felt electric. This moment could go either way. Angela knew it was time to shift the balance. "Officer Baker," she said, her voice ringing out clear and strong, "do you know who I am?" Baker scoffed, trying to act unfazed. "I don't care who you are." Angela took a small step forward, her calmness rattled him. "You should," she said. "I'm Angela Carter, head of internal affairs for the state of Missouri." The words landed hard. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Baker's face showed a flicker of panic before he quickly forced a scowl back into place. "You're lying," he said, but his voice wavered. Angela didn't react. "Check for yourself," she said. "Call your station, look up my credentials. I oversee officer conduct across the entire state, including yours." Baker's false confidence cracked. Thin and fragile, he stepped back, clearly rattled. His hand dropped from his holster, and he shifted uncomfortably, fully aware now of the camera, the crowd, and how damaging this moment had become. Angela didn't back down. "This whole encounter has been recorded," she said, her voice steady but carrying a sharp authority that made people listen. "Your behavior will be reviewed, your actions examined, and I'll make sure you're held accountable." Baker opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He looked lost, like someone gasping for air. The control he once had was completely gone, and everyone around could see it. A young man in the crowd, phone still raised, called out, "Yeah, you better listen to her." Murmurs of support followed, the onlookers clearly moved by Angela's quiet but firm stance. Baker stepped back again, sweat now visible on his forehead. I didn't mean any disrespect," he said, his voice shaky and apologetic. Angela raised an eyebrow. "Your actions suggest otherwise, officer," she said coolly. "Why, you might want to think about that." For the first time, Baker looked small. The arrogance from earlier had drained away, replaced with visible discomfort. Angela didn't smirk or gloat. She didn't need to. Instead, she turned to the crowd. "Everyone can go home now," she said softly. "There's nothing more to see." The onlookers slowly began to leave, though many threw lingering glances at Baker, whose shoulders now drooped under the weight of what he'd just done. Angela watched as he walked back to his patrol car, defeated. But she knew this wasn't over. This was just the start of something bigger. Inside his cruiser, Baker gripped the steering wheel tightly. His breathing was short and uneven. His thoughts raced, looping the same sentence in his head. I oversee the conduct of every officer in this state, including you. Each time it repeated, it chipped away at what confidence he had left. Angela stood calmly beside her car, waiting. She didn't need to hear the radio to know he was checking her identity. Her quiet stance said everything. This wasn't the first time she'd faced something like this, and it wouldn't be the last. She had no plans to let it slide. A few minutes later, Baker got out of the vehicle. His posture was different now, less sure, more cautious. The swagger was gone, replaced with something closer to regret. "Miss Carter," he said carefully, stopping in front of her. "I spoke to my superiors. I know who you are now." Angela looked him in the eyes, calm but unshaken. "Good. Then you understand how serious this was." Baker gave a stiff nod. I apologize if I went too far." Angela tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Too far," she said. "This wasn't just a mistake, officer. What you did wasn't a slip-up, it was an abuse of power, driven by bias and intimidation. Do you even realize how dangerous your actions were?" Baker opened his mouth to answer, but no words came out. He closed it again, the seriousness of her words finally sinking in. For the first time, he looked truly uneasy. Angela didn't let up. Her voice was steady and firm. "You took an oath to protect and serve, but today you chose to target and intimidate. Now think, what if I weren't in the position I'm in? What if I didn't have the knowledge or power to defend myself?" Baker's shoulders dropped. The truth of her words hit hard. He stared at the ground, unable to meet her gaze. "You're right," he said softly. "I was wrong." Angela nodded once. "Admitting that is a start, but it's not enough. You need to think about why you acted that way. And you need to work to change, because this isn't just about you. It's about what you represent." The street was quiet now. The crowd was gone. Only the two of them stood there, in the soft glow of the setting sun. Baker nodded again, barely above a whisper. "I'll do better." Angela turned and walked toward her car. As she opened the door, she looked over her shoulder one last time. "I'll be watching, and I will hold you accountable if you don't." She slid into the driver's seat. Baker stood still, the full weight of the moment pressing down on him. Angela pulled away, leaving behind a man now forced to face not just his mistake, but something deeper inside himself. As she drove home, the tension slowly left her body. In the rearview mirror, she caught her own reflection, calm yet thoughtful. She'd faced discrimination before. This wouldn't be the last time. But today felt different. Today she hadn't just stood up for herself. She had made a point. Accountability matters. Back at the police station, Officer Baker sat alone in the break room, playing her words over in his mind. Her calm, confident voice had shaken him in a way he didn't expect. For years he had acted without thinking, letting his own bias lead the way. But now, he couldn't ignore the truth. His badge didn't make him right. His power didn't give him the right to treat others unfairly. Angela's voice echoed in his head. What if I hadn't been in the position I'm in? He thought about all the people he'd stopped over the years. How many didn't have the chance to speak up? How many were scared, silenced, or worse? And for the first time, he didn't want to do better out of fear, but out of responsibility. Meanwhile, Angela pulled into her driveway and stepped out. The evening breeze brushed her face as stars began to appear overhead. She paused, looking up for a moment. The fight wasn't over, but today had meaning. Change doesn't happen all at once, and progress isn't always neat, but moments like this reminded her why she kept going. This story wasn't just her own. It belonged to everyone who had ever been silenced, overlooked, or pushed aside. Angela knew the strength in speaking up, the power in standing firm, and the importance of making people answer for their actions, even when it made them uncomfortable. As she stepped inside her home, her resolve carried her forward. This wasn't just one small victory. It was a spark, a moment that would ripple through the department and beyond, a reminder that justice isn't just a word, it's what we do. In the end, the message was clear. Real power doesn't come from rank or authority, it comes from accountability, and justice, even when delayed, always finds its voice.